Questions for reflection. In our first reading, we come to an end of our daily reflections on the letter to the Hebrews, with this charge by the author to the early churches and to all of us today, to offer ourselves through Jesus Christ to the Father, to cooperate with the grace given to us by God, and to become holy, a living sacrifice of praise. One of my favorite saints, a saint who calls everyone, every Christian, to everyday holiness, Saint Jose Maria Escriva, once wrote these words, and I quote, "When a Christian carries out with love the most insignificant everyday action, that action overflows with the transcendence of God." He continues, "That is why I have told you so often and hammered away at it that the Christian vocation consists in making heroic verse out of the prose of each day. Heaven and earth seem to merge, my children, on the horizon, but where they really meet is in your hearts, when you sanctify your everyday lives." He continued, "Sanctify your everyday lives." And with these words, I refer to the whole program of your task as Christians. End quote. Have we chosen to sanctify our everyday lives? Do we want to become holy? The 23rd Psalm of David is by far the most well-known and quoted of all of his Psalms. I have been in ordained ministry for 23 years. It is the most often chosen psalm at weddings and funerals when the faithful are asked to help choose the readings for those services. Its beauty is in its great promise of God's continuing presence and protection in every moment of our lives, even in those dark valleys. When I was a young man, I mistakenly thought that such struggles would lessen as I grew older and learned how to live by faith with more maturity. As I read the lives of the great heroes of our faith, the saints, I found that I was wrong. In fact, the opposite seemed to be the case. The ones who were closer to the Lord seemed to struggle and suffer even more. They even came to share in His sufferings. What is different in the life of a Christian is not that struggle, failure, pain, and difficulties go away, but we change. In fact, they often become the instruments of such change and the very material with which we are made new when we learn to live by faith. Christians do not face struggle or approach suffering in the same way as those who have not yet received the gift of living faith. Living faith gives us new glasses with which to view our entire life differently because of who Jesus is and who we are becoming in Him. However, that requires that we cooperate with the invitations of grace which are present in every moment, even when they seem to be hidden. The Lord, the Good Shepherd, is with us. Do we believe this? We continue today with the Gospel of St. Mark as the text appointed for our reflection at Holy Mass. The disciples have just returned from their first missionary journey without the physical presence of Jesus accompanying them. They told Jesus what they had done and taught, and He called them apart to a time of rest and prayer. But the crowds continued to follow the Lord with all their pressing needs, and Jesus had compassion on them. The root of the English word compassion means to enter into the suffering, to enter into the need of another. That's what Jesus did. That's what we are called to do as His disciples. Pope St. Leo once wrote of Jesus, and I quote, "He took the nature of a servant without stain of sin, enlarging our humanity without diminishing His divinity." And the Pope continued, "He emptied Himself. Though invisible, He made Himself visible. Though Creator and Lord of all things, He chose to be one of us mortal men. Yet, this was the condescension of compassion, not the loss of omnipotence. So he, who in the nature of God had created man, became in the nature of a servant, man himself. End quote. When we empty ourselves of ourselves, Jesus comes and takes up his residence within us. Then we can become his arms, embracing the world, his legs, still walking its dusty streets, and his heart, still beating with the divine compassion. How are we doing?